One of the biggest challenges about becoming self-employed or being self-employed is how to be successful. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the keys of being self-employed and making sure you're setting up for future success. Hey there, great to have you back to the Blink podcast. Oh my goodness, this topic today is going to be a cracker because so many people are either self-employed or thinking about self-employment and the challenges that go with it. So what we thought we'd do today is we've got a specific question from one of our viewers, and today we're going to have a conversation between my good friend across the ditch, Jonathan Creek. How are you, mate?
Good,
And
Darren. How are you?
myself, we're going to talk about self-employment, being self-employed, challenged by self-employment, and all those people that are dreaming of self-employment, how to be actually successful. And you and I have tussled with this for a number of years, and I think this is a great question from our listener.
Yeah, I think it's an incredible question, particularly with the state of things
Yes.
in the world. I think self-employment's growing in popularity. I think
Yep.
self-employment and working from home
Yes.
is an important consideration. There's a romance about it, but it's not. Sometimes it can end in a nightmare, I think is the best way to put it. So you've got to be, look, I've been self-employed now, working from home since 2013.
Yep.
So 11 years after being full corporate my whole previous work existence. So I went from sitting in a room with 250 people in an open planned, highly dynamic newsroom environment to sitting at home alone in a house.
Yeah.
With no pressures of deadlines, no expectations of doing anything. And it was really interesting. If I think back to those days, and there's a couple of other news guys who stepped out the same time as I did and started their own businesses. And there was this period between 6 months and 12 months where things were a bit weird and you had to take control of them. And this is probably more specific to news journalists, is that the first 6 months were a whirlwind of activity and getting things going, and people want to work with you and they help you and things are good. It's the 6 to 12 month period that I think is the most dangerous. And then there's a few periods further down the track, but let's get over the first hurdles. What I used to find when I started working for myself at home is I would get to say 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I had rung all the people I needed to ring.
Right.
Or I knew.
Yep.
I wasn't a great builder of networks at the time. I was just farming off my existing network. And I'd get to 4 o'clock and I'd be done. And the problem is, from a newsroom environment, 4 o'clock onwards is the high pressure time.
Yeah.
And so working from home, I had no pressure, but I had been trained to have high pressure from 4 o'clock onwards. And I used to have this internal sort of wrestle with myself that, oh my God, I'm not doing enough. Oh my God, I'm not working hard enough. Oh my God, I'm not getting things done. I should be busier. I should be ringing people. And so it became very, unenjoyable. The afternoons were became a really dark time, or excuse me, a panic that I wasn't doing enough to be successful in that time.
Yep.
But what you learn over time is that work ethic is so important, and that's why it's at the top of our list today.
Yeah.
It is so important, but when you're working for yourself, you're not stuck to the clocks and timeframes of other businesses, which is the bonuses of it, but it can also be the biggest trap.
So we received this question. We received the question and it said, Darren, Jonathan, please have a chat about this. I'm thinking about leaving my job and becoming a contractor and being self-employed because I like the idea of the freedom and the potential income. How do I make sure that I'm going to be successful? So that's why this whole area of becoming self-employed, self-employment success is such an important topic for us to have a think about. And for me, so I've been self-employed for 30 years. So I've never really been employed at all. I've always been either a contractor or self-employed. And that's just been the way my career has been. And obviously coming from financial services, that was the way you were generally you were employed initially, and then becoming owning your own business straight from that point is being able to generate revenue that pays your bills. So that from that point, and that was the way my life was, and either being a contractor or the full self employment. So yeah, for me, 30 years of been tussling with this, and I think that's a great question, and a lot of people get challenged by it. So for us to have a conversation about this today, I think it's a cracker.
And our first episode dedicated to a listener viewer question.
Yes.
Round of applause. But they wanted to remain nameless, unfortunately. But if you do have questions or challenges in your business,
Well, we can't mention Chris's name. We shouldn't say that.
oh, Christmas is
Call
coming.
him Christmas. Okay, nice.
You are skipping the lead though, Darren. I probably jumped ahead a little bit early, but skipping the lead. 30 years.
Yeah.
Unemployable. I think, and I don't say this in a derogatory manner. I don't say this in a derogatory manner, but I think you have one of those personalities, such high energy, that you're almost unemployable because they try and, when you're employed, there are frameworks.
Yeah.
And
A little
restrictions.
bit. Yeah.
And systems and processes. And I think you're such a guy that wants to, I mean, your energy is your superpower. And if you were to be put into the framework of a corporate business, I think you'd go crazy.
Yeah.
With, oh no, we're doing this because I've even putting your voice on there. Oh no, we're doing this. We're doing this because this is the way we've always done it. And you'd be like, you're mad. Like, come on, let's go. Break this down. This is rubbish. Move forward. Don't worry about what we used to do. Let's just focus on what we can do. Like, oh my God, imagine trying to be your boss. Like, it would be, you could be employable if you were the boss.
Yeah.
And you just had a board and shareholders above you and you just reported to them. But if you were like, I don't know, if you were to be like a marketing associate or the head of marketing or sales manager of somewhere, oh my God. The business would do better, but it'd be hard yards.
Well, it'd be hard yards for the boss.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I'm saying. Too hard.
Thanks, mate. You've just signed my death warrant for ever being employed for the rest of my life. That's awesome. Thanks very much.
Well, it's too late. It's too late for you to go and get a job.
Yeah,
it's too late for me to go and get a job. I mean, I've
Yeah,
thought about it over the years. On the back of COVID and all those sorts of things, I was like, I might go back and get a job. There is a certain safety in having a job, but it comes at a price. And we've had this conversation so many times. Got to get up at 7 o'clock. You got to be there at 9 o'clock. If you're 5 minutes late, you get in trouble. They can call
and you know what? And you know what? For the person paying the salary, they have a requirement of amount of work that they want to get you to get through in a day. And they say, hey, can you do all this within a time frame? Because then we'll pay you an X amount, Y amount. And then you go, oh, okay, I'll do that. And then you think to yourself, actually, if I was to do that amount of work and that amount of time frame for myself, you earn way more.
Yeah, I think that's the formula, right? And that's the formula that attracted me is, there is freedom.
Yeah.
But there is also greater rewards for a term that a guy by the name of Paul Huggins, who's a business leader over here in Australia, worth a fair amount, he uses the term personal exertion.
Yep. Love it.
And working for yourself, if you've got the right structures in place and you've got the right offer and the right type of business, personal exertion can bring you greater benefits than if you... I mean, look, you could work your butt off in a job.
Yes.
Be the absolute overtime. Don't claim your overtime. Do extra hours. Answer calls on weekends. Be the one that's first in the office. Not surfing the internet for every afternoon for an hour or so. Actually working your guts out, and you may get a 2 or 3% wage increase at the end of it.
Yeah.
On top of what others get for whatever it is.
Yep.
But if you do that for yourself, you can make 100% more.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's the attraction. I think the attraction for me was um, two young girls. They were in primary school, prep, I believe, when I started to work for myself. And it was like, I want to be around for these kids through primary school.
Yeah, nice.
And I want to go to their sporting events. I want to watch them run cross country. I want
Yeah,
to help coach their sporting teams. I need flexibility to do that.
nice.
And as a news reporter, you could be anywhere, anytime, and not know about it.
Yeah,
So I thought I'll take that work ethic, and mainstream media is what it is. You can work as hard as you want, and you don't get rewarded for it because their budgets are shrinking.
yeah,
So the future was capped in terms of revenue. So for me, it was like, I've got a concept, I've got an idea. There's a demand for it because I've already got people asking for me to help them with it, which was video and storytelling and personal brand building. So the exit is important, I think, for Christmas to to consider here. Is when do you pull that pin, right? And
yeah,
when you get ready. And what I would advise is you've got your 9 to 5 job, and then you've got your 9 till midnight job.
yeah, nice.
And so in the 6 months or the 4 months, depending how good you are or how good your network is, you've got to be working that 9 to midnight job so that when you pull the pin, you're at least making 75% of what you're on now.
Okay. There was a long pause there.
For you,
Yeah.
what do you think? Just pull the pin and let it all hang out?
So self-employment comes with a level of risk, right?
Sort of.
So self-employed comes with a level of risk. The difference between being employed and self-employed is that the risk gets transferred to the business. When you are employed, the risk gets transferred to the business, that the business has to make sure that it makes a profit so it can pay you and pay the dividends to the shareholders. But when it comes to being self-employed, the opportunity side of that is that you actually can create a greater success. But you've got to be careful that you don't hamstring your success by having a foot in both camps, right? Because this is what I see quite often is people kind of go, I'm kind of going to be self-employed and I'm kind of going to behave in a way that as if I was employed. So I'm kind of going to have a foot in each camp and hopefully that works. And my view of it is very seldom it works because what you have to do is you have to be 100% committed to whatever you do in self-employment. If you are a dollar short of 100%, you will unfortunately not get the result that you deserve in self-employment because you've got to be all in. And I've always had this view that at the end of the day, if it all turned to shit, then hopefully you'll get a job, right? Then hopefully someone will employ you, right? But at the end of the day, you've got to be committed to creating that success. Otherwise, just having that inkling that there's a rescue life raft will stop you swimming.
No, I think I'm saying that. I'm just
Oh,
saying
yeah. Okay.
I'm just
Nice.
saying once you're preparing to divorce, and you've
Yep.
got to make sure that exit's clean. Don't
Yep.
go out with firecrackers. Like, I know people who have done it. Drop the mic moments. And yes, there is an upswing sometimes, a sugar
Yep.
hit, a bit of chest beating, but it always comes back to bite you. Like, it
Yep.
always, in New Zealand, Australia, the business communities are very small,
Yep.
very small. Like, yes, you'd be surprised how connected they are.
Yep.
If you drop the mic or throw a hand grenade on the way out, it'll come back and bite you.
Of
Uh,
course.
so what
Yeah,
you got to what
you've got to leave.
I'm
Yeah, I agree.
so what I'm saying is, when you do have D-Day, changeover day, finish on a Friday, self-employed on a Monday,
Yep.
some people take a break, a holiday.
Yep.
I'd take the holiday while you're still working for the corporate, to be honest. Take
Yep.
that break. But what I'm saying is, in the 6 months towards D-Day, is you've got to have everything in place. All the silly things,
Yep.
websites, email set up,
Yep.
business registered, financial or tax structures organised, um, accounting software like Xero, all the stuff that's time wasting. Get all that done in your 9 to midnight business.
Yeah.
You don't have to flick it live. You just have it all organised so that when you do, you are
You're
100%
ready to go.
committed. But
Yeah.
the revenue you're earning will speed up because all you have to focus on is getting clients
Yep.
rather
Nice.
than setting everything up. Like I know so many people who start their own businesses and they take a month to build a website.
Yeah, 100%. We
And then
see
they go,
that.
"Oh,
See that all
I'm
the time.
struggling. I'm
I'm
struggling.
so busy.
I can't go and get any clients because I haven't got a website built yet." And it's like,
Yeah.
really? I
Yeah.
I could. I've got website. I've got 2 websites, and one of them I don't think I've touched in, I don't know, 5 years, and it still brings me business.
Yeah. Love it.
Never updated it. It's a waste of time. Yes, you need a presence, sure. Some businesses need websites, sure, but personal exertion, getting on the phone,
Yep.
work ethic, doing a good job so that the people who you land in your first 6 months refer you to other people.
Yep.
That's the secret to launch success, and that all comes down to work ethic.
Okay, so what we've done is you and I have had a bit of a think about this, and we've come up with the 7 key insights for self-employment success. So I reckon we should work through these because these are really good just to help. And now, even if you're self-employed, even if you are self-employed now and have been for a while, these are good refreshers as well. Because I think these things sometimes get a bit lost, and sometimes we just need a little bit of a reset when it comes to being self-employment. So I think actually, as we go through these, mate, I'll challenge ourselves here to actually put our own insights into this, right? Because it's
Yeah.
good for us to be able to test ourselves here as well. So let's go.
This,
Okay.
this, this, folks, is Darren applying his framework to me, and we're going to get some very real outcomes.
Oh, stop it. This is going to be fun. This will
There
be
are
awesome.
a few of these things on the list here, Darren. I'm like, yeah, okay, targeted at me. But yeah, this is the beauty of being self-employed. You can run the business the way to suit your lifestyle.
Yep, 100%.
Right? And
100%.
this is a trap that you and I fell into early. Is that I was very keen to run my business the way that you run your business.
Yep. Yep.
But and your business is more successful than my business. No worries about that. Hands up. But the way you run your business doesn't suit my lifestyle at the moment, or it didn't.
Totally.
Things have
Totally.
happened, obviously, in my sphere, and now I've got clear air to go down that more energetic, out there path. But at the time, and I'll say it, yeah, my dad was sick, and sadly he's passed away. But at that time, I was needed,
Yep.
and so I
100%.
couldn't do the things. But with when you're self-employed, you have that flexibility.
Yep. 100%.
But
100%.
understand, if you stop working, the business stops working.
Yep. 100%. And that's a challenge. We'll talk about that.
We will. All right, number
Okay.
one.
Number one, work ethic. Now, the big thing about work ethic for me is when you're self employed, there is no substitute for really strong work ethic. So, your ability to get yourself out of bed, to actually go to your job and actually commit to what you need to get done, you've got to have that in a drive, and you've got to have that work ethic. Because the biggest thing that I find for me is that you don't have a boss. And I always say that, you know what, I'm a pretty good salesperson, right? And I can convince myself pretty much that, whatever the problem is in my business, there's 497 excuses why this particular thing hasn't worked, and not one of them was my fault. And that's the thing with when you are self-employed, is that, you can make those excuses, and not having a boss means that you kind of don't have anyone to really answer to. Except for either car crash or bottles of champagne at either end. In the middle, you don't really have that boss that sort of creates that framework for you to define your shorter term success. So, my biggest thing is, one, you've got to have the drive to have that work ethic, and you've got to make sure that you can be the boss to control that work ethic.
Yeah, this is a massive trap for me. Is I had a work ethic as a journalist, but there was bits about business I didn't know about. So because I didn't know about them or didn't understand them, I
Yeah,
probably spent 3 years making good money, but my business was almost like a gig economy.
right.
So I was on this roller coaster of uh, hunting for work, getting a lot of work, then having to do the work, and
And
at
then
the end
no
of
work.
having
Yeah.
to do the work, no work.
Yeah.
And um, that's why I advise that 9 to midnight. It wasn't until I started doing that. I was already self-employed when I started the 9 to midnight work.
Yep.
Yeah, to smooth it out. And there's still a bit of roller coaster in it because I'm really reluctant to have other staff.
Yep. Yep. I know. I get it. And this is the piece where I always say sometimes you have to put the hat on. You have to put your hat on and say that I am the boss. I am the person that is responsible for the success. I am the person that has to drive this business and make sure that you're doing the work. And I think that sense of being the boss of your own business and being responsible for it, but then also understanding that you also have to be in it doing the work,
Yeah,
are those two distinctly different roles, and you've got to make sure that you do that.
yeah, accountability.
Yep.
It's good. Number
Number
two,
2.
believe in what you do.
Yes. And I reckon this one is for self-employed is actually you've got to be really believing that what you're doing makes a difference and believe that you actually are contributing, because I feel like sometimes if you get into a job or into self-employment where you're not 100% committed or you're not 100% believing what you do, you'll start to, as soon as something gets tough or things get challenging or your cash flow gets tight, you will very quickly start questioning why you're even bloody self-employed or why you're doing it, right? So you got to be absolutely believing what you do makes a difference and that there's a market there for it.
Yes, and and I think what comes into this too is not doing too many things.
Yeah. Yep.
So believe
Yep.
in the one thing that you do and drill down on that. And I still suffer this. So when I went out and was self-employed, A, I was a journalist. B, I'd done research into viral content and social media and all that sort of strategy. But to get things fluid, I also had a whole lot of clients that wanted me to do PR. So I had a PR business, and then I had a bit of a production company. So I was making videos for people. I got rid of the PR business. The production company still hangs around, and even recently, I've had an offer of a big job to make videos for high profile real estate people over here in Australia. And while I will do the job, there's a churn that comes with it
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
because it's like, you know what, it's probably one of the first times in a long time where I sat there and said, this isn't actually what I do. It used to always
Oh,
be. It
yeah,
used to always be. Oh yeah, I do this and I do that. But
yeah,
right, but now, and I think this has happened since I went to REC, and it was a belief moment for me in REC. I walked around REC, and I had real estate people coming up to me saying, "Hey, Jonathan, I really love what you do with videos. I look for, I'm gonna give you a call. I want to work with you. I want to learn more about what you do. I've heard great things, blah blah blah." And these were people who, to me, at the time, I knew from a social media point of view, never met them before in my life.
yeah, yeah,
And that gave me the belief of what I actually do in terms of strategy and advice and storytelling actually does work. I've always had this safety net in the background of a production company. And I've reached the point now where I'm probably going to, by Christmas, because I like getting to the end of something, I think this year could be the last year
yeah, yeah.
because the training and the speaking is already 90% of my revenue
What you
and
do.
my,
And you believe in that. And you
I
know
believe
that
in
it makes a difference. And you know that you've got that belief in absolutely what you do. I
it.
love it,
And,
mate.
and what's really
That's key.
interesting is the more you believe in it, guess what? The more other people believe in it.
Yeah.
You try and pitch a sale or a service in something you don't believe, they'll pick it. They'll pick it
In
before
about
they even
four
have the first
seconds.
sip of their coffee.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
sugar's still
100%.
sitting on top of the cappuccino, and they just sit there and go, "This person doesn't believe in what they're selling.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I'm not buying it."
No, 100%.
Yeah, so you got to have real strong belief, and I think to get that belief, you've got to have serious conversations with people you trust
Yeah.
in the network. to say, is
Oh,
this legitimate? Does
yeah,
it work? And get some runs on the board. Test it.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Okay, number three, clear goals, mate. And this is again when you're self-employed, you have got to be quite disciplined with this one for me because this is the one for me that can get quite wobbly and will start to wobble your self-employed business if you don't have clear goals and targets that drive you and motivate you. That's what all of a sudden you'll start to get busy doing stuff that actually doesn't really require the work, or creates you busy doing things that don't generate you revenue, and you're not going to actually get the result that you deserve. So you've got to make sure you build those clear goals.
Yeah. Again, I haven't had clear goal. First 6 or 7 years of my business, I don't know about you. How long did it take you to get clear goals?
Uh, I was always, I've been always very driven about how many projects do I need to generate a level of revenue that I want to generate. So I always work back from, okay, if I need this amount of money to drive whatever uh, success that I need, this is the number that it needs to be, which equates to this amount over 10 months of the year, which means each month's got to look like this. And you need to make sure that that number is achieved. And that's all, to be honest, that's always been in me, because I realized that if you look at the big number and you go, jeepers, how am I going to reach that? But if you break it down and then you say to yourself, okay, this month I've got to generate that level of revenue out of 4 weeks. So each week I kind of needs to look like that. Then all of a sudden it actually becomes quite you know easy to get your head around, and then it just comes down to being motivated around that number per week, because as
Mm.
soon as you get that, it just makes and look, some weeks are fantastically above your target, some weeks will be below the target, but in terms of your annual picture, if you've long as you've got that clear goal and that's what drives you, all of a sudden you start to be very clear about where you need to be spending your time.
What's Christmas's number? Do we know? Chris,
No,
you don't know his number? What sort of
no,
job is he in? Do you know?
no, I'm not saying.
Okay. All right. But let's say, for example, I don't know, let's pick a number, 120 grand
Someone
a year.
someone might know. Right, Karen, yes, 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 good.
120 grand a year, right?
Yep, yep,
And what sort of industry is he in? Because I don't know him, you know him.
yep. So coming from a more service-based business into a more selling commission reward basis.
All right. So he's just got to work out what he's selling, what his commission is,
Yep,
and then hit that 120. First year, just hit the achievable,
yep,
survivable number. We're
yep,
not, we're harvesting our farm here. We're not building new farms
yes,
first year. And I think that's the biggest mistake. And particularly if you get into that startup ecosystem, that, online, that internet startup, raising revenue, angel investment, that sort of crowd, which is easy to fall into when you start your own business. Yeah, they'll sit there and go, aim for the, shoot for the moon and you might become a star or something like that, right? And they make it too big a gap to jump.
yep,
I think the biggest change I made in my business this year is I wrote down a strategy based on a conversation. It was an episode of the podcast that we did,
yep,
and I wrote a strategy with clear goals. And I think I've mentioned it before. It's called the strategy of 10.
yep,
And I've got 2 ways that I want to work in my business. So I'm really clear on what I believe in and what I want to do. I've got 2 ways I want to work. I want to train people in either real estate, finance, automotive, train them in building their own brands and having a presence in the market. And I want to hit the stage for public speaking. That's sort of
yep.
my grand final sport exhilaration moment. And I enjoy both of those 2 things for 2 reasons. And so I built a strategy called the Power of 10.
Love it.
So all I need is 10 keynotes a year and 10 training clients a year.
Yep, love it.
And I've added to that now that I've got the one-to-one service. I've got 10 one-to-ones.
Yep, love it.
Power of 10. It's 30 clients a year.
Yep, love it.
And so that's
And you
it.
see what
And
but
so I
see
don't
but
even
see
worry about the money anymore. All I worry about is how many have I got in my alpha program? I've got 10. And I said
so
that I'm going to do this goal. I'm going to do the easy goal first, the medium goal second, the hardest goal last. Because guess what? The hardest goal becomes easier when you're making money in the other areas
love it. Yep.
because you're not so
And
scared about a no.
so for our listeners and watchers, the thing to notice here is what
Watches,
you've done is put a
viewers.
strategy you've put a strategy in place, right? You've actually got yourself into a position of going, here's my clear strategy, the clear goals that's going to actually motivate you and drive you. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a number. It doesn't have to be money. It actually just has to be focusing on the key components and the clear goals that you need to focus on.
Don't worry. I did do the maths on the money
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I wrote it.
Great. Yep.
Um, but there is. I just wrote it there. Like I'll hide the
Yeah, I
money.
love
Hide the money, right?
it.
And not only that, I gave myself deadlines on when I had to achieve it,
Good boy.
right?
Well done, mate.
Because I'm a deadline guy. Uh,
I love it.
pre- and previously in self-employment world, it's very easy to drift.
Yes, totally.
It's very easy to find other self-employed people
Yep.
who, excuse me, hay fever. Uh, it's not hay fever, but that's what my doctor reckons it is. Darren says my doctor needs to go back to medical school.
No,
Other self-employed people who are happy to meet with you and coffee on and
yep.
talk about how good things are going, but they're actually not doing any business.
Yep. 100%.
They get your goals done, be motivated about them, set a deadline, and don't necessarily focus on the financial part of it. Focus on the number of deals.
Yeah, I love it. That's it. And that's the goal part, right? And that's the stuff that really motivates you. So getting that. Okay, next one is clarity of tasks. Now this that sort of kind of helps us with what we've just been talking about in terms of setting the clear goals. But the goals is what we want to achieve. But then what we've got to do is define the tasks. So if you need to create this level of sales, well, we then need to make sure that we're doing this level of activity, which means we do need to do this number of calls, this number of face-to-face meetings, this number of this number of that. And that kind of gets you lined up to being, hey, these are the things that we need to be practically doing every day.
This is where your genius level comes out. Once someone sets a goal, how do we get there?
Yep. Yep. And that's the practical piece, right? Of just getting really clear on what makes the result happen. And probably maybe a sense of having to. Maybe in my career, that's the piece for me of always looking at, I always have had reasonably challenging jobs or challenging environments to work in. And for me, my skill development's probably been around, okay, if we need to achieve this, then break it down to what are the things that we need to do to get that result. And then how do we make those tasks become daily that we then just refer to, these are the things that we've got to do each day. And I find in self-employment that's probably the bit that people get distracted by the quickest is, I've got these tasks that I need to get done today, and then someone walks into the office and says, do you want to go and get a coffee? And the first thing the person says is, yep, let's go. And next minute an hour and a half goes by and all those tasks that you should have had done haven't been done. So I think it's that consistency of getting those tasks locked in place that actually meet those goals.
Yeah, and I think there's so many distractions if you're working from home. So like I
Well, there is, but there's a
yes,
shitload more that also when you're working in an office, because that's the other side of it, right?
no, I think with an office, if you're in an office, particularly a co-working space and all that sort of stuff, I've been through them. If you find a good one where people are really driven and driven at working,
Yeah,
you'll mimic their behavior. They call it the Bart Simpson effect. If you put someone in there who's a joker and mucks around, you'll joke and muck around.
yeah,
Like that's the thing.
yeah,
But what I find working from home is it's easy to be distracted.
yeah.
There's been a few things that have happened in this house that have added to it recently. Solar panels, surprisingly, have become a major distraction in my workday here because guess what? You don't make your money off solar panels with your feed-in tariff anymore.
Right,
Where you make your money is by doing your high energy tasks at the time when the sun's out. So guess what
right.
your wife now does? Oh, can you put the washing machine on? And when it finishes, can you hang the washing out? Hey, can you put the clothes in the dryer? Hey, can you cook this or run this or charge these batteries? Like my kids leave battery banks on my desk for me to plug in and charge today while they're at school, so they can plug their phones into them at night and not use the energy grid to charge their phones to save the
Wow.
world. Right? And these are just little things that creep in to being self-employed, especially if you're working from home.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the other thing is, don't let your kids get a puppy for Christmas, right? And now you're spending your workday looking after, like having another child, a baby. She's sitting back here. I'm not going to bring her in because then opens up a whole can of worms. I've now trained the dog to not annoy me between 9 a.m. and midday.
Yeah, nice.
Gets fed, goes outside, no interaction.
Yeah, nice.
Right, so you got to really protect your boundaries, protect your space.
Yeah, I
But I
love that.
think with you, the clear goals are very important. Small targets, consistency, those steps,
Yeah,
and I live by them now. I've got to call these 5 people today.
love it.
I've got to call another 5 tomorrow.
Love it.
And setting time aside to do those tasks and not moving on to non-productive tasks. It's easy to be
Well,
busy.
let's talk about number 5 now then. Let's
I
talk
was
about
just
number
about
5 because number 5 now is time and productivity.
I was about to segue into it.
Oh, go on,
It was
you.
going to be magic. It was going to be
Go
magic.
on, then.
That's okay. We move on to it. So that's it. Protecting your time and productivity. That's number 5.
Yeah,
Being really honest with yourself, I think, in terms of where you're spending your time
yeah,
and how productive you're being.
yeah,
There are a lot of tasks in business that uh, that if you get to the end of the week, you look back and you say, you know what, I probably didn't need to do that.
yeah.
I'm like when I first became a keynote speaker, I can't tell you how many times I rewrote my one pager to get a
Yeah,
gig. How many
I get it.
times I changed proposals. Guess what I've done now? I've found an app. It's called Gamma. And all I've done is I've just written my pitch on there.
Yeah,
One for speaking, one for training, one for alpha. They're my
love it.
proposals.
Love it.
I never rewrite my proposals anymore.
Love it.
I just send the person a link. Here's the product here's the service I offer that I think best suits you.
Love it.
Bang. I
So
may
good.
write a 4th one that covers all 3. And then when they choose the service that they think is right for them, they then automatically click to a more detailed
So
proposal.
so the thing is for me here is I always say this to self-employed business owners and to people in business is just open up your calendar. Open up your calendar
Calendar test.
and actually just have a look at how much white space is in there. Because what generally most people are really good at is put their meetings and the appointment times in there. And that's what's generally they run from their diary. But one of the things that I really encourage people to think about is put in there the tasks also that you need to get done today and the white space in between those appointments. Because
Great
what it
idea.
starts to do is to build you structure with your day and what you need to get done. So people say a to-do list. Yep, to-do lists are really important. Love to-do lists, but the piece with a to-do list is you've got to allocate those tasks to
Yeah.
time in your calendar. Because see, I had someone say to me this the other day, said, "Oh, Darren, we don't like to-do lists because they make it feel like we fail." Well, the only reason you're failing is you're not getting shit done, right? So the reason why you're not getting shit done is because you're not allocating those tasks to a time in your calendar. As soon as you put that link in place, you watch what changes because very quickly you become very much about tasks being able to be allocated in a time frame. You've given yourself a sense of time pressure and you get your shit done. And all of a sudden, your productivity goes up dramatically.
This is something I'm going to adopt because I haven't done this. This is something new that you've taught me here. I'm a to-do lister. I'm not scared to fail if I don't get
Yep.
my to-do list done.
Yep.
But I can get through my to-do list, bang, 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 and then I get about 3/4 down and go, I just don't really want to do that bit at the moment. Right now, I've got to do my tax. Don't want to have to do it. Waste of time. Like, the tax office can wait. Well, guess what? The Australian tax office ain't waiting at the moment because they're broke. So if you want to cost yourself an extra $400 by being late, go build your website or edit those videos.
You got it.
But I'm a to-do lister, but I think this is something I'm going to adopt. I'm going to add the tasks to my calendar. Now, I know real estate agents are very good at this. There are guys and girls out there that will set 9 till 11 every morning in their calendar, blocked out, just for calls. Is this what we're talking about?
And you see that there now covers a lot of the things we've talked about, right? Just by doing that, you've actually covered off a lot of the things that we have to do here, right? Is by just giving yourself that sense of structure. That's awesome. Because if you were a boss and you saw your employee having done that, what would you say?
Good work ethic, believes in himself.
We're away.
Clear goals, motivated.
We're away.
But see what happens to me when I talk about that, 9 to 11. Who wants to get a phone call from someone at 9 o'clock in the morning? Like, I'm already making excuses not to do it.
I love it. I love it.
This is how my brain works. It's so fried sometimes. For the guy that runs a very popular business podcast, man, it's like my brain, and I'm sure other people's brains do the same thing. It's like, who wants to record? And then if I set my time from 11 till midday or whatever, who wants to get a phone call just before lunch? No one. You do it in the afternoon. Who wants to get a phone call in the afternoon? You're probably prepared.
They'll be busy.
Yeah, they'll be busy. Like, it's just the amount of times I have over the last 10 years, I haven't called somebody because it's a minute past midday and I think it's lunchtime. It's just insane. But that's a trap of being self-employed because you are monitoring yourself. You are a slave to your own motivation. And if you have some cracks, if you have some self-doubt, these things are going to creep in and they're going to affect your productivity and you're going to end up wasting your time. You're going to jump at opportunities to do something else. My move recently, as has been well documented in this podcast, I had my studio in the back of the house.
Yep.
The only view out of that studio was to the backyard. Right? And the backyard didn't change. The dog would go in and out. The cat, like, you'd see some birds, whatever. Nice, you'd have daylight. It was comfortable. Zero minimum distractions.
Yep.
I've now been moved to this position in the house, which is in the front room.
Nice.
Big front room, big room, beautiful setting. But guess what? I've got a view over the street. I've got a view of the city. I've got a view of the neighborhood. And guess what comes with the neighborhood?
Distraction.
Neighbors. And guess what happens? They now know I'm sitting in this front window and they wave at me. And then they come up for a chat. And so I have to go down and have a chat.
Oh, don't do it.
And then there's stranger danger. Then there's people that after now been here for 6 months, now there's people I notice that I don't recognise in the street.
Oh, stop it.
Mr. Neighbourhood Watch Brain comes in. It's like, what are they doing?
Stop it.
So I've moved my desk so that I don't face the window.
Yeah.
But be aware of that. It's a time sucker. Your brain will suck you in on that.
So just have a think about where you can become the most productive. I don't know about you, but in my world, if I can get myself some non-distracted time. Now, a big one for me is after everyone goes to bed in this house. So once everyone's gone to bed, maybe 10 o'clock at night, I can do an hour and a half or 2 hours where actually I get a shitload done because there's no distractions. There's no one emailing me. There's no one. I can just really get focused on, having some quiet time that you just go. But some days I'll just go, actually, I need to have that quiet time in my office from 10 to 12 or whatever it needs to be, so that you go, absolutely, this is what I'm going to focus on, and becoming highly productive in that time. So my challenge to everybody on the podcast today is to have a think about this. If I asked you to do a 20% increase in your productivity, what would you do to do it? So 20% more effective, 20% more productive in your day. What would you change? And to be honest, for most people, it's not changed much. I just would tell some people to leave me alone because I need to make these calls, or actually I'm going to not respond to my email list. I'm just going to get focused on my to-do list and get that stuff done. And as soon as we're in that position, we're away. And that there really helps improve productivity.
Yeah, it's so important. You've got to be
Number
really
6.
disciplined.
Number 6.
And this is where, if you are self-disciplined over time,
Yep.
you create habits.
Yeah. And I reckon success in self-employment is your ability to create these habits, because self-employment is tough if you have to keep going back and reinventing all this stuff all the time. So what you've got to do is build the habits that make you self-employed successful. So I'm now, I would say, reasonably proficient in knowing the habits that I need to keep doing to create my success. So I know what those are, and I'm pretty good at making sure that I do them every day. So that kind of helps with my consistency of getting the result. But in saying that, every now and again you do have to review what are what habits are you doing, and what are you consistently being good at, and what are the things that you need to really spend some more time on.
Yeah, and from your perspective, you've got staff, you've
Yes,
got people who are relying on you. Does that make you stronger in your habits? Because
a little
you got to pay their bill.
a little bit. But also, I actually ask them to help structure my habits. So, for example, it's your job to book a weekly meeting in my diary. It's your job to make sure that we've got a summary of bookings for this month. It's your job to make sure that we've got 10 face-to-face meetings with clients over the next month. It's your job to. So, what I try and do is to create that structure for my team that also helps me be structured as well. So I just try and, so I'll give you, when I first started doing this, I knew 10 calls a day was critical, right? 10 calls a day, must do it. So I got Emma, who was my PA at the time. She used to create a list of 10 people that I needed to call, and she would have that ready for me each in the morning each day. Towards the end of the day, before she'd go home, she'd ring me and say, "How are you going with your calls?" Now, the reason why I put that in place is because I knew that I'd give you 497 excuses why I hadn't done my calls. And do you know what? None of them was my fault, but if I've got somebody else that was helping me to hold me accountable, then it just made sure that I got those calls done. And now I pretty much do my 10 calls a day, every day, just because I want to talk to people, and it's part of my habit. So I feel like I haven't engaged with enough people each day if I haven't done my 10 calls, but that's where it's become a habit for me.
Right, and you're still getting that list prepared?
No. So I just do that now off my I've got my database, and it just says there's the list of people that you need to be calling, and I just work off that now, so that I know that I've just got to call more people and just keep calling them, say, "G'day, how you going? What's happening?" And great to catch up and see you soon.
Are there people that you skip over in that database? You're looking at,
Yep.
not today.
Yep.
No, I'll ring this
Yep.
person, ring that person.
Yep,
Yep.
definitely. Yep. Because remember, I'm self-employed, and I'll justify skipping that person because of this 497 reasons why I can justify it. But actually, just being realistic that hey, you do have to get through your 10 calls, and you do have to call the people on that database, and they need to hear from you. So stop bitching and moaning and just get on with it.
And I think that's this links into the last point. Point number 7 is those habits, those continual habits of reaching out, the continual habits of making calls. It's the one thing I've struggled with a lot. 10 calls a day for me is, and it's really weird because as a journalist, I loved making calls. I was calling strangers all the time on the hunt for a piece of gold, an
Yeah.
angle, a piece of information. Like I'd make 100 calls a day, easy. Like
Well, be careful.
easy, easy.
Yeah.
I'd just be ringing, and if people didn't, I'd just hang up, ring. Like I was like a dog chasing a bone
Yeah. Love it.
for a story. In business, it's different because I think, and I use this as a massive excuse. This is a big block that I need John Shackleton to get out of my head. Is that if I'm ringing people for business, I'm going to sell to them. And as a journalist, we were never allowed to sell. We'll train,
Yeah.
no sell. So I'm like, I know the motive of why I'm ringing, which
Yeah.
is to sell. But really, what you actually need to get into your mind, or what I need to get into my mind, is believing in what I do and how it helps, and ringing them and saying, how you going? What's going on? I've got something that can help.
Yep.
And that is all about engaging the market, which is point number 7. You have to engage the market, but also learning from the phone calls, getting the information of what's actually happening in the market.
Now you got it.
How does what you do, Chris,
Now you got
and
it.
what you're going to be doing, how is what you're going to do help the market? Now, I think the first 4 or 5 years of Viable, I was going out and saying, here's my way. You
Yep.
have to do it this way. And this is the way, this is the path. And it wasn't until I started to engage in the market that I started to better understand the problems that were out there, that I could
Yep.
then understand how I could apply what I do to help them. And when I made that shift,
Yep.
of, okay, here's your problems. How about we do this, this, and this? You don't
Yep.
have to follow the full 5 steps, but for you right now, if you do step 1 and step 4
Yep.
of the Viable formula, you'll get the results. And guess what? Once they get the results with step 1 and 4, they come back for 2, 3, and 5.
Yeah, I love it. Well done, mate.
But they only come back for 2, 3, and 5 if you keep ringing them and
And that
engaging them.
and that's the engagement, right? And that's why we said that's why it's engage the market, and it's not just talk to the market or call the market or sell to the market. You actually have to engage and build that. Now, no matter what self-employed industry you're in, if you can create that engagement and just engage with the market, there is so much opportunity out there that you'll keep you busy in your self-employed business for the rest of your days. And that's the trick, right?
Yeah, and I think you and I are a little bit different here. You're the phone call guy.
Yep.
That's fine. I do like using technology to make that first point of call,
Yep.
to do that first reach out. Hey, how's it going? What's happening? A little bit of chat on Messenger or text or whatever it is. And then once I get that sort of open gate
Yep.
response,
Give you
then I
away.
ring. And I'm giving away a few secrets. Then I ring and say, oh, look, it's a bit too hard to chat, a bit too hard to text. I'm driving or I've got stuff
Yep.
going on. So I thought I'd
Love
just
it.
give you a call.
Love it. That's great.
Then
That's engagement, mate. That's great.
engagement.
I'm not. You're doing it, and that's the piece where for everybody out there today, like when you think about what we've covered off, work ethic. Make sure you are the work ethic of a boss and what the boss would expect. Put that structure in place that you are the boss at one level and you're also in your business doing the job. Believe in what you do. Create those clear goals. Clarity of the task to achieve those goals. Make sure you're focusing on how you use your time and make sure that productivity thing is really at the forefront because time is money when you're self-employed. Create the habits that give you the revenue. That's key. And not just be busy, but actually focusing on how do you generate the revenue. And the last one is just make sure that we're out there in the market, engaging with the market and getting the market to understand why you're valuable to them or their business. And when you think about being self-employed now, I think the market, like generally, is really open to self-employment now. I think there's a lot of industries now that we're employed type models, but now are very much allowing contractors and that self-employed space to really take hold. But I think that if you get a good structure around building that self-employment business, I think you can be hugely successful these days.
Yeah, I think it comes down to personal exertion. I think that's a great term. Um,
Yep.
all businesses can fail. Don't worry about
Yeah.
that. You
Yeah.
had a
Totally.
statistic out the other day that said from the life of the stock exchange in America, 87% of businesses no longer exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
So all businesses can fail. You can have 400 employees and still fail. Um, the beauty about self-employment is you can be super nimble. Uh, you are responsible, which is great.
Yep. Yep.
You are responsible for your own results.
Yep.
What you put in, you get out. And I think it is more sensitive than that. It's like the revometer on your car versus the speedo.
Yep.
The revometer is way more sensitive to the gas you're putting into the engine, where the speedo comes up slowly. So big businesses are like a speedo, self-employed businesses are like the revometer.
Yep.
You'll get more response more quickly. And I really think engaging the market is so important because the more that you and I hang out together, and it's 3 or 4 years now, is that selling is about storytelling.
Yep.
And if you don't engage the market, then you don't know what
You
story
can't
to
tell your
tell.
story. Yep.
That's right. You don't
100%.
know. You don't know what story you need to be telling in order to get the business.
Yep.
But I'd also say for self-employment, don't get too disappointed when you get no's. Like, you shouldn't be getting yeses from your first 10 calls,
No way.
right? And that's the game. It becomes, once you do and follow Darren's path and practices of breaking down those tasks, those clarity of tasks. Hey, you got to make 10 calls. You got to reach out to 10 people. You got to spend an hour building your database or identifying 10 potential targets, following them on LinkedIn, reading their website so you know what they're doing, working out who the person in the business is that you need to call. Now you
You're
can,
away.
yeah, then you're away, right? Then you got to make those calls, but you got to understand where they're coming from. Don't just talk, listen. Just don't talk, listen, and then at the end, right, well, I think I might be able to help you with this. Like, it's not a selling process, it's a relationship building process.
Well done.
And the beauty I think you're also touching on is that self-employment is very attractive to big businesses and medium-sized businesses at the moment because they get the benefit of your work without the hangover of sick leave,
Yep.
holiday pay, entitlements, all that sort of stuff. You are almost you're like a Navy SEAL. You're a crack operative. You get in there, you get the job done, you leave,
Yep.
and they don't have to keep paying you.
And a lot of the times these days, when you get someone who's done a great job, you don't need to leave because they will want you to keep going and doing your job,
Yeah,
right? Because that's what helps create their success. So, yeah,
yeah,
for me, I think when you look at those topics that we've gone through and thinking about being self-employment, I think the world is moving more towards helping self-employed people be successful. You just need to make sure that you've got that structure and framework in place. So, I just think today, like in terms of helping the person who's provided us that question, I think that there gives them some really good insights into moving away from employment to being self-employed and giving them a really good steer on how to be successful. So I think that should help heaps.
if Chris drops the ball from here, I'll eat my
Can't
hat.
keep using his name. Stop it.
Christmas.
Yes, Christmas. Right. Okay.
All right. When's he going to pull the pin? Let's.
Right. Okay. So now that we've had that discussion, I think we should move on and say thank you so much for being with us today. I hope you've got a lot out of that, no matter where you are in the employment process between being employed, thinking about self-employment, or truly being self-employed. There's always opportunities to learn from those topics, and I certainly hope that from today you can take that big step and move your opportunities in a better direction. So thanks, mate. Really good. Loved it.
Yeah, self-employment's been an awesome lifestyle for me. I couldn't
Yep.
recommend it more highly, but it does come with different stresses. When you
Yeah.
work a 9 to 5 job, now that we've got this right to disconnect laws in Australia, you can switch off 5 o'clock on a Friday and go to work on a Monday with no distractions. I don't know how
Yeah.
it's going to go for you in terms of career projections, but that's where they're moving to. Self-employment does come with different stresses. You don't always get to switch off 100%. But I tell you what, when you got a business that's humming and it's all done by you, and you can sit there and go, I did this, I built this, man, it's a great feeling.
So cool.
All right, good luck, Chris, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
See you later, everybody. Take care.